We're back.
Let's see. I'm trying to wait and see if it's gonna let me connect back to Facebook. It's still telling me to send. Let me know. We're back, guys. Sorry about that.
Part 2.
Come on, let me. It's not showing me that we're live on Facebook. This is not cool.
Yeah, I don't see it on my page, but I might just need to refresh.
Let me
Are we live on Twitch? And the other places? I mean, I don't know how many we are.
What I'm
I'll
gonna do
ramble if you're ready while you're doing that.
Yeah, if you want to ramble, I'm gonna reconnect my Facebook.
I mean, we were talking about and I don't want anybody to miss what we were discussing, especially you when you had to go get something. But basically, I went through the quarterbacks that are unrestricted free agents. We talked about Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and then we got to Jimmy G and Teddy Bridgewater. There's Taylor Heineke, Lamar Jackson, Geno Smith, and then Daniel Jones. Those are all of the quarterbacks that I felt like are the important quarterbacks to discuss. And I think that Lamar Jackson is going to get franchised, and he's going to, I don't think he wants to play on the franchise tag, and he may tell him that, in which case they'll either have to sign him or they're going to trade him. And when we talked about the trades before, I said I thought Atlanta, Carolina, and Washington. And so we're kind of rehashing that. But the other one, and this will bring us into our running backs, because the Giants cannot franchise both players, and that's Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley in the running back room. Excuse me. For Daniel Jones, he's asking supposedly for outrageous numbers because he had, for his standard, a really good year, but I think that was all about system, the coaching. Brian Daboll, he was coach of the year for a reason. I did not see Saquon Barkley did carry the team for a while during the season. They were able to win a playoff game in Minnesota, but they're going to have to make a decision before March the 7th is over. Who are they going to franchise? So they got to sign one of these guys to an extension, before the end of March the 7th, or they risk losing one of them.
Yes.
Was that yes, we're good?
Yeah. Sorry.
So I went, the next guy on my list of the running backs, and he's been the featured back before when he was in Kansas City, and he's been splitting time with Nick Chubb, and that's Kareem Hunt. And I think his services are going to be highly sought after during this offseason. There's quite a few teams where I will call it their workhorse running back is, either on the downside of their career and they need to bring somebody else in, or they're looking to add somebody, that to their team to be that person, to be the workhorse. And I think that Kareem Hunt is one of those guys that could fill that void for a team out there that wants a running back. I don't see him returning to Cleveland. What do you think, buddy?
Kareem Hunt not going to Cleveland, is that what you said?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to go back to Cleveland. I think he's going to go somewhere else. I know he wanted to be traded, and they resisted the urge to do that, at the end of this last year. And so I think that when it comes to this upcoming season, I don't think that he's going to remain, a Cleveland Brown. I think they're looking to do something either go in a cheaper direction. You know, he's been kind of disgruntled because he wanted to be the featured back. Not saying that he is a bad teammate to his buddy, you know, not saying he's a bad, you know, teammate or whatever to his boy Nick Chubb, but he just doesn't, you know, he doesn't click or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think he wants
franchise.
to be in Cleveland. I don't think he will be in Cleveland. Actually, I'm glad you bring Cleveland up. I think Cleveland's about to have the worst offseason because I feel like a lot of their free agents are going to want to leave. I know they had a bunch of drama with their one defensive end, Cloudy. They sent him home after he said he don't see himself in Cleveland. I feel like a lot of those players feel the same in Cleveland. So I'm actually, that's one of the teams I'm kind of watching to see in the next couple of weeks because I believe a lot of stars want to leave Cleveland.
Right.
But no, I don't see Kareem Hunt in Cleveland by any means.
I don't have a team necessarily for him to go to. You know, that's one of those who wants him type of things. The next guy on my list is Rashad Penny, who I think is expendable in Seattle. I think they found their workhorse in Kenneth Walker III here this last year, the rookie. You know, Penny was a first-round draft pick for him. Couldn't really stay healthy, never made all the big plays they expected him to make when he came out of college. And so I think that he'll be on the move.
Yeah, I think Penny's going to be a borderline. He's going to have to fight to see the field. I mean, the kid's good. It's just, can he stay healthy? What contract is he even looking at getting at this point, too? Because when he plays and he's playing at full potential, he can be a beast, but it's just a healthy factor. So if maybe a team could pick him up where they can just literally rotate him in and out, I'm not 100% sure. So that's
right.
And I'm kind of curious on what can happen. But who's next on your list?
Hi, Ron. How's it going, Ron? If I can just figure out how to mute this thing, we'll be in good shape. Hi, Ron. How's it going? There we go. Now I could see the comments because I couldn't find them on here. Anyway, let's see. Moving on in the running backs, and let's get to your boy, Jamal Williams. He's an unrestricted free agent. I know he has said that he wants to remain there, but I think he wants to take him out and get some bank. You know, wants to be like, hey, look at all the touchdowns I scored this year.
See, I would technically agree with that, but for the fact that I've seen him out of his own mouth in an interview, willing to take a team-friendly deal, I have to say I see him back with the Lions.
That'd be great. I think he did a good job for you guys this last year. You know, they won't have to use a franchise tag on him technically, you know, to keep him around. I know that he splits time with Swift, but Swift, in my opinion, as an outsider, I think he's your receiving back. You know, he's the guy that catches the ball out of the backfield more, you know, in the mold of like a Jerick McKinnon for Kansas City.
Yeah. That's it, and that's a setup I like. I mean, this year I said it, and you know, I love Swift. I want him in Detroit. I just feel like I'm not gonna be one of the Lions fans and be scared to admit this, but he cannot just stay healthy when he has to run the ball through the tackles and he's in the starter position. I don't know what exactly he is, but I do know it's proven. Now, this year when he came back from injury, he didn't have any problems playing that role. So I think going to next year, especially if we get Jamal back, you keep the same thing. And I think you could have Jamal Willen, or not Jamal, but I think Swift could have a breakout year playing that type of ball, to be honest.
Right.
I think you could see that. I think next year could be the best season Swift's had as an NFL running back, as long as we
Right.
keep Jamal. Because we cannot go back. We cannot go back to him being the number one back again. Until, maybe he changes something, maybe, what I mean? Workout routines are huge in the off season. You know what I mean? Hopefully he's hitting the gym and doing what he needs to do to allow his body to get tougher, stronger, and be able to do more.
I agree with that. I just think that, once again, from an outside perspective, it felt like he was loosey-goosey with the ball when he is majority of the time as a running back. But moving on to the next, and this here is the NFC champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. They got a lot of mouths to feed. And their top two running backs, both Miles Sanders and Bart Scott, or Boston Scott, I should say, are both unrestricted free agents. Now, I can tell you as a fantasy football player that Boston Scott makes some plays on occasion. I wouldn't say that he is integral to the team. I think Miles Sanders needs to definitely get re-signed by Philadelphia. I know they brought in Kenneth Gainwell this last year, and he got quite a few touches. But when Sanders gets featured and he gets at least 20 carries, they get over 100 yards, and they road grade teams with the running game when they give him 20 carries. If he doesn't get 20 carries and they're messing around, that's what gets Philadelphia in trouble. And they don't, if they're not running the football, to match up with their passing game.
Yeah. Honestly, I think also too is I think personally, if Philadelphia loses Sanders, I feel like they lose a lot with their team. Personally, I think you need Sanders, but I also think they need to also beef up that running back position too. Or they need to start using running back. Because was it just me, or was it a lot this year with the Philadelphia Eagles? They didn't run the ball like they should have run the ball.
I thought they ran the football, but the majority of the time when they were running the football, it was all about Jalen Hurts running the football. Jalen Hurts was the guy that was running the ball, and that's why it looked like they had so many rushing yards. I mean, they had rushing yards, but the rushing yards were coming from the quarterback position instead of from, the running back positions. They basically were the NFC version of the Baltimore Ravens. Okay.
Yeah.
But Jalen Hurts, I think, is a better passer than Lamar Jackson. Now it could have been that he had better weapons, but I mean, Lamar Jackson has, Mark Andrews. He had Marquise Brown at one point. He's had Sammy Watkins at one point. He had, I think it was, DeMarcus Robinson at one point was all there, and he's throwing the ball to these guys. And because of a lack of accuracy, sometimes, he gets it to the tight end all the time. The mid-range passes, but it's the over-the-top passes that he fails to connect on. And Jalen Hurts was connecting on those passes.
Yes. But you also know how I feel with running back or with rushing QBs. Don't get me wrong, Jalen Hurts can run the ball. The dude's a beast when he's running the ball. There's no questions about it. But do you want a healthy quarterback at the end of the year to help you. I mean, let's be honest, Philadelphia Eagles got very lucky that Hurts came back from the injury and was healthy as he was in that playoff stretch, or they might have just kissed their whole Super Bowl season goodbye because they chose to run the QB more than the running back.
He
Now,
had the
Sanders-
shoulder injury.
Is that
Lamar Jackson has missed a lot of games. Look at Kyler Murray, another quarterback who's a rushing quarterback. Okay. These guys that run around are one big hit away from being done for the year, and so that's why I think that, and we're getting away from the running backs here a little bit, but that's why I think that Baltimore does not want to have the fully guaranteed contract with all the guaranteed money going to Lamar Jackson. They know, I mean, look at all the games he's missed over the last couple of years. And so, I feel the team's on the decline. Baltimore fans don't want to hear that. Now, their defense is getting back to being where it should be, but now the offense is disappearing. Okay.
Yeah.
They've had a couple of offensive linemen they've had to switch in and out because they either traded them away. Orlando Brown Jr. went to Kansas City because he didn't want to play right tackle. He wanted to play left tackle. Ronnie Staley got hurt at left tackle again. They had, I'm trying to think of the name of the guard that retired, but he was really good, and he retired like 2 years ago. And so they have made the playoffs and look dangerous. Then they make the playoffs and they bow out. This year they didn't make the playoffs, and so they're a team that's going to need to do some things to get back to being a prominent team. And they're in a tough division now with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. I like Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh. Okay. Now in Cleveland, they're going to have Deshaun Watson all year. He's going to have a full off season. He's going to have, a full preseason. And if he stays healthy, he's a running quarterback a little bit, more passing than running compared to the other guys. He's more like Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's the passer that Mahomes is, but he can run like Mahomes does, takes off, picks up those first downs. And so, I look at Cleveland being a team that'll be on the rise this year a little bit because they've got stability at the quarterback position instead of going with Brissett, and now we're going with Watson, and now we don't know what we're doing, and people were getting hurt and everything. But
here's the thing about that is I still don't see Cleveland really doing nothing too crazy. I got to see more out of Deshaun Watson from the play I've seen from him this year or this past year. He didn't look good. And I'm kind of nervous that 1 year of missing football, I'm kind of starting to really think that
definitely rusty.
That's truly hurt him.
And it might have, but definitely rusty, but it helps if you've got a good team around you, and that team has been pretty good the last few years. I didn't feel like they had the stability at all the positions. The center, was cut. He was the, president of the Players Association. So they had a different center in there. That really affects the offense because he makes all the line calls.
Yeah.
Kind of like what happened to Tampa Bay this year when they lost their center. The whole offensive line falls apart, and so, but, we're kind of getting away from, trying to make predictions on that kind of stuff when we're doing the free agent rundown here. I've got Samaje Perine, who is basically splitting time this year with Mixon. Mixon was the workhorse early in the year until he got hurt. Perine came in and basically he filled the load, filled that role and picked up the load for Mixon being out. And so I don't know if they're going to re-sign him. Cincinnati is generally a cheap franchise when it comes to signing their players, and they're going to have to pay Chase. They're going to have to pay Burrow. And so are they going to keep P. Ryan, or is he going to be out on the market?
That's a good question. They might have to go in the draft and maybe pick up a back if they can't re-sign him. But I've been hearing a lot of reports of Burrow's camp that Burrow knows he wants to keep his weapons around him. He wants to keep his team together. So the rumor has it he's willing to take a decent contract and make it team friendly for the Bengals,
Like a Mahomes
which
style
that's
deal.
huge. And that's not a bad gig if Cincinnati Bengals can't, if Bengals can get that. That way you keep Chase, you keep Burrow. I don't think Burrow wants to play without Chase, which that goes huge, I say, in the league, because you lose Chase but keep Burrow, you're still losing a lot of your offense without Chase. And and they go way back to college, so I mean, and it's translated in the NFL. So I mean, they're looking pretty good. I'm kind of
They're boys.
how much.
Yeah, they're together. The next running back on my list is not the featured back in Kansas City. That goes to Pacheco now, and it looks like that they're going to decline the fifth-year option on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So this will be his last year in Kansas City unless they trade him away. It's Jerick McKinnon, the Jet. And, like I said earlier, I fashioned him, the Swift of the Chiefs. He's a receiving back. But if you watch the Super Bowl and you look at some of the film that they were showing after the game, as far as, some of the big plays that were being made, McKinnon lead blocked for Pacheco on his touchdown. They had both of them guys in the backfield, and, kind of a mix it up, see what they were going to do. You didn't know. You figured they were going to run the ball being that close to the goal line. But, he was basically playing fullback in that move, and then later caught a few passes out of the backfield, could have scored a touchdown at the end, but sat down at the one like a smart person, so that all they had to do was run the clock down and kick the field goal. I think that they need to re-sign him in Kansas City. I think they've had him at a discount for a while now. He's going to want to raise, but I think he knows where, his butter's bread, or his bread is buttered, to be there in Kansas City. He'll have another shot at another ring if he sticks around.
Exactly. And honestly, from familiar, I mean, not with football, of course, but and I'm not trying to get too much off topic, but in hockey, like with when the Wings were winning cups, we've seen a lot of players, take less money to stick around to have another chance at a Stanley Cup championship, So I think that's another case. Like, I think you're right on. I think McKenna, I think he'll take a team friendly deal, and I think he sticks around for another year deal, because he knows, it might not be for a lot of money, but at least at the end of the day, he got a legit chance at another championship. So why wouldn't he want to stay in KC at this point in his career? Because I
would say they can offer him what I would call a comfortable contract.
Exactly.
It's comfortable for him. It's comfortable for the team. And there's a lot of players that end up doing that because they don't want to leave. They've made a home where they're at. They don't want to have to, uproot their family and go somewhere else. And so if they can take what they would consider a comfortable deal, which I think he will, I think he'll remain with Kansas City. David Montgomery for the Chicago Bears. He was their offense for a long time, and he has been, because they haven't been able to pass the ball worth a damn for a few years. And, you got Justin Fields back there now. You've got the number one pick in the draft. Do you want to re-sign David Montgomery? Do you want to trade that pick down and get you a new running back? Do you want to sign somebody else? They're a division rival. What do you think they want to do with David Montgomery?
I mean,
they've got Khalil. Hang on real quick. They've got Khalil Herbert, and they've got another guy whose name eludes me, but they have two other running backs that have filled the void when he was injured.
To me, I think the Bears do need to draft running back, and this is only why I say it, is Montgomery. He had a couple good years when he first came on the scene, but his last couple years, I would say he's been pretty average. Nothing too crazy out of him. And I feel, and this is also comes down to what the Bears doing free agency at the wideouts position. But if you don't get some big wideouts in there to help Justin Fields, then you're definitely going to have to bump that backfield up. You're going to have to give Justin Fields something to work with. You're going to have to either find him a back that is fast as can be, that can run that ball and maybe even catch the ball and work Montgomery in there. If you're not going to spend some quality money on your wide receiver core, because Justin Fields is going to get killed if you don't do something. And even if you do upgrade the wide receiver core, there's nothing wrong with getting even an upgrade back to Montgomery and keeping Montgomery as the change of pace back. Because me personally, I don't think Montgomery is the quality starter back. I still think he can be good, but I still think you need somebody else in that backfield better than the two backs you have on your roster now.
Right. Well, the next guy on the list is Devin Singletary of Buffalo. I'm going to switch up my graphics for fun here. Got my World Championship shirt on to go with my background.
There you go, buddy.
Devin Singletary, has been, with the team since he was drafted. And during that time, I think that they have not leaned on the running game. When he gets opportunities, it's kind of like Miles Sanders. If he gets opportunities to run the football and they concentrate on the run, open up the play action passing, Singletary is a solid running back for them. But they just drafted James Cook, the brother of Dalvin Cook, so now he's in there. They've got Naheem Hines, who they traded another running back for, Zach Moss, to Indianapolis to get Hines. And so, is he going to stick around or not? For me, I look at this and I say, no matter what they do, Buffalo needs to run the football. They throw it too much. They don't give themselves an opportunity to milk the clock like Kansas City learned how to do. I think Buffalo needs to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I don't think he's going to be with the team. I think he's going to leave.
And honestly, I don't blame Singletary. I believe, he was rumored to be a pretty good running back coming into the league. And I still believe we've not seen that at all from him because they don't use him. It's a lot like Miles Sanders. I believe Miles Sanders could be a way better running back as well. And I think they're in the same boat. Their teams just call different plays and don't use them to their full potential. And Buffalo, I'm glad you bring it up because I just want to say, I think Buffalo's not going to win a championship until they learn how to maneuver their players a lot better.
Right.
And Allen's proven he cannot do it all. These quarterbacks keep showing these teams every year that they need help. And sometimes I just wonder why the coaches never adjust their play calling.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think maybe they need some self-scouting, or perhaps what they need to do is they just need somebody that's got an independent set of eyes to look at what they're doing to tell them. I can't tell you how many times I've watched games and I look at offensive play calling and I'm like, There was no screens. There was no draws. They never used a jet sweep. They never used a bubble pass, no flanker screens, nothing like that. Everything was run the football up the middle, run the football to the left, run it to the right, and then chuck it as far down the field as you can.
Exactly.
No imagination, no mixing it up. And, it's frustrating as a fan to watch those types of things from, I used to see that a lot in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Used to see that a lot in Minnesota where they would just become stagnant. I don't have to worry about that in Kansas City because, they're doing ring around the damn rosy. You see all kinds of crazy shit there, but.
And shit, Detroit used to be bad with it when we had Stafford. If our running game wasn't working in the game, we would just go away and be like, all right, Stafford,
50
you're going to
passes.
swing the ball, 50 passes. You're going to end the game with 400 passing yards, maybe a couple touchdowns, but it never got us nowhere. And to me I still feel like that's a big problem in the NFL with these quarterbacks. Once they show, especially with like the Mahomes, everybody's chasing that. And when they got a quarterback to that level like Buffalo, they just think Allen is the ticket with slinging the ball. And it's like, no, like Mahomes, like if you look at Mahomes is a great quarterback because his coaches use every piece on that offense.
Yeah, it's like they completed 10 different passes and they went to 8 different receivers. Yeah.
You take the running backs out of the game and tell Mahomes, go sling the ball 50 times a game, and let me see if KC's in the Super Bowl, because I bet you they're not.
I would believe that. I would believe that they wouldn't be. It takes a full complement, a complete team effort, in order to be able to do things. And so I'm going to skip this one for last and go to this next one. We got 2 left in the running backs. Josh Jacobs, probably going to get franchise tagged. They declined his 5th-year option going into the year, and I really think it lit a fire under him. I don't think that the Raiders can afford to lose him. But if he's a free agent on the market, he will be highly sought after.
For sure.
If the Raiders don't want to keep him, they should put the franchise non-exclusive tag on him, because there will be people that will bid and want to trade for him after the kind of year he just had.
Oh, for sure. And that's the crazy thing is why we're even seeing him as a free agent in the first place with the year he had. There's no reason why they shouldn't give this kid a long year deal. If not, at least picked up the 5th-year option.
Well, he hadn't performed like this up to the standards that they wanted. They knew what kind of money it was going to cost them. Well, now it's going to cost them even more. And we've talked about the Raiders being a team or franchise that, they don't have a lot of money in their pockets, and so it'll be interesting because technically they don't have a quarterback right now. They're going to have to sign a quarterback unless they're going to stick with Stidham, and they're going to have to sign Jacobs. There was talk that as early as today that Devontae Adams could get traded because he wasn't happy with the fact they let Derek Carr go. There was in-season chatter last year that Darren Waller almost got traded to the Packers. And so, there's a lot of instability with the Raiders. They shouldn't trade any of these people away, and they need to re-sign Josh Jacobs. And even though I'm a Chief fan, the best thing for them to do, that they should have never let Derek Carr go. I think that was a mistake, but I don't think he fit the system that Josh McDaniels has. They're probably going to bring in Jimmy G. They'll be a dangerous team this next year, but that's going to be, I think the division will be tough like everybody thought it was going to be this year, but it skipped a year. It'll be this year with Peyton in Denver The Chargers will have a full year kind of comprised the way they are. They've changed their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. So they've got, going to have new coordinators there. The Raiders, I think, will be a lot tougher if, they make some of the moves that we've talked about. But I was saving this for last because he ended up being injured in the NFC divisional playoff game. And that's Tony Pollard for the Dallas Cowboys. I think because he's injured, he's not going to get near the money that he probably could have. Obviously, I don't think they're gonna franchise him. But they are going to have the discussion internally about whether or not they're going to try to cut the salary of Ezekiel Elliott or release him outright, because Tony Pollard was the better running back on that team all season long.
Exactly. And also, I've heard a lot of reports coming out of Dallas that they really don't think Zeke has the juice in his legs anymore. And you know what? He's one of them backs that was used like Christian McCaffrey and Carolina before Pollard came along. They pounded Zeke for a few years there. And it just seems like Zeke, the last 3 years, easy has pretty much fell off to what he used to be. So, me personally, I don't see Zeke staying in Dallas. Only why I see this is because I feel like Zeke, it all really depends on Zeke. Because for Zeke to stay in Dallas, he's going to have to take a friendly deal. If he goes in there trying to be like, I want this, I want all this money, he's not going to be in Dallas. And then that still puts a damper on his career at this point, because now I don't see any team offering him more money than Dallas is willing to pay. I believe if he leaves Dallas, he's going to be the third down back, and he's just going to be the big body guy to pound it on short yardage. I don't see him being used the way he's probably going to want to be used. And I think but it really depends on him. Who knows? He might come in this year and realize that, hey, I'm at the tail end of my career. I still got some play left. I can still play, but this is my real role now, So to me, it just depends on where his mind is at, where his agents' minds are at, because it's going to come down to money.
I saw that if they were to cut him, they would save a certain amount of money, and there wouldn't be all that much dead money involved, because he's in like his third year on that deal.
Oh yeah, he's still on contract too. For some reason, I think he's a free agent.
Yeah, but Pollard, Pollard is the guy that, he needs to get paid, but like I said, he's not going to get the kind of money that he probably wants because he got injured in the NFC divisional playoff against the 49ers.
I got a question now.
That concludes the running back section.
Quick question though with that one.
Sure.
What if they cut Zeke? And it's just
they would not take on a whole lot of dead cap money. I think it saves them somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million against the cap that they'll be able to use, to sign other players. Maybe that's the $9 million they need to give to Tony Pollard.
That's what I'm thinking, because at that point, if Pollard wants to get paid, that's probably the only way he can get paid if Zeke's gone.
Well, I think it was like the last game of the season, and Dallas didn't play all of their starters. Okay. I think it was Pollard was out because they were saving him for the playoff game, and their third stringer came in, and I was impressed. His name is Malik Davis. And so if they decide to get rid of Zeke and Pollard comes back healthy, they still have a two-headed running game with this Davis guy. I thought he played really well in, the game that he was in there. And I could see flashes of what may be to come here in this upcoming year.
That is true. Yeah. I have to agree.
I have in the wide receiver. I'm gonna do something funny here. DJ Chark, DJ Chark. There's
DJ
your
Shark.
boy. Do you want to keep him? Do you want to keep him on your team? He's been there for one season, come over from Jacksonville. Or do you feel like you need to move on and and bring in another player?
This is what I personally say, and mind you, I want Shark to stay. I like Shark. I think he's a good receiver. The one thing I didn't like Shark about this year is it took so long for him to truly start playing a factor in our offense.
Yeah,
but it's okay.
I didn't think he did much early in the year.
I think, but looking back on it, I think it's okay. I would like him to stay.
Well, he'll be the third. He'll be the third wide receiver after this season because you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I really like in the slot, okay, for you guys. But Jamison Williams is going to be fully healthy going into this next year. And so I'm expecting big things out of him. I don't know if you're going to keep Josh Reynolds or, it depends on how much, Chark wants. Detroit's got $22 million in cap space, and that's before they restructure any deals and
we already
make any cuts or that other stuff.
We already cut Blockers. Blockers has been cut, so we saved
Right.
$10 million there. So I believe that brings us up to close to 30 mil.
Right.
Free.
Now, is that before the 16 million that the cap's going up?
Yeah. Or no, I think that with the cap and everything, if I think I've seen with the cap up, and if we cut Blockers, that gives us over $30 million free. I seen an article a few weeks back to expect Blockers to be cut because of this factor, and it played out. That's what happened.
Do you know how many draft picks you have going into this season?
We
know you got the 2 in the first round. That'll be something we'll want to check out for another later broadcast.
Yeah.
How many picks you've got, what kind of cap space you have. And so, I sent you, and I want to make sure that we get to this. I'm just going to talk about a few more wide receivers in passing here, and then move on to our 2 teams for this particular broadcast. And then I think we can come back and do some of this other stuff on the next one. And that is, let's go here. Wide receivers. We're going to talk about him when we do our teams. Let me go to, Tennessee just cut Robert Woods. I don't think he fit their offense. I know he played good when he was in Buffalo. He played good when he was with the Rams, but he was coming off of an injury, and he had Ryan Tannehill throwing him the ball, in a run-first offense in Tennessee. And so I think that there may be demand for him to play for some teams, but I think he had a down year just because of the team he was on. It didn't work out for him.
Yeah. So I'll agree with that as well.
Packers, Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb are both free agents, as is their tight ends, Mercedes Lewis and Robert Tonyan. So they've got a lot of receiving people that are all going to be free agents. I guess it just kind of depends on whether or not, still first subject we've started the broadcast with in part 1, Aaron Rodgers, is he coming back? If he doesn't come back, I can tell you right now, Cobb will not be re-signed. They'll try to re-sign Allen Lazard. He only took a 1-year deal going into this year because I think he was hoping to show, what he was capable of. But they drafted those 2 rookie receivers in, Dobbs and Watson. And by having both of those guys, they got the majority of the, the passes looking their way.
Yes. Exactly. I think it all depends on who's playing quarterback, what kind of money they want. I think Cobb is going to retire because if Green Bay will not bring him back, which again, but here's the thing though, if Green Bay refuses to bring Cobb back, is that going to be another drama segment for Aaron Rodgers? Is Aaron Rodgers going to flip out because Cobb's not coming back on the team at that point? Because he's made it very clear that you don't want to play without Cobb, which at this point, so that's going to play a factor. I do see Tunyon coming back unless they decide to maybe draft for a different tight end. Because I think Tunyon's hard for me because I think he could be a good tight end. I like his hands.
He played great 2 years ago.
I like his physicality. I like his blocking skill. But I just feel like he don't get used in the passing game like he should. I feel like Aaron Rodgers don't use tight ends like he should. The last tight end he really used a lot was Bubba Franks, and that dude was a beast. Since he's retired and moved from Green Bay, we haven't seen tight end play like that since him. So Tunyon, I believe, depending on how much money he wants, because I don't think if he wants a decent pay raise, that's borderline if he's going to get it or not from Green Bay. Because he hasn't produced like that to get a pay raise. So I think it's really on him. And I think it all depends on who's quarterback. He might try to pick, he might want to go to somewhere else and pick up and see if he can't get his career off the ground and get to the higher pay scale.
Yeah. I understand all of that. And when I look at some of these other wide receivers, I don't want to, just kind of mention them in passing. I think they all deserve attention. But the ones I'm looking at here, you've got Jarvis Landry with the Saints. He signed a 1-year deal to basically go home because he played at LSU. And, I don't know who he thought the quarterback was going to be. I think he probably thought it was going to be Jameis Winston. It ended up being Andy Dalton. And Landry was playing a little bit hurt during the year. He's going to be, he's a free agent. I don't know if they're going to want to retain him in New Orleans. Once again, New Orleans is going to have to make some moves because, they're so far over the cap right now. You got T.Y. Hilton, who came in at the end of the season there. He hadn't played for anybody, but looked really good for Dallas. I think that they should re-sign him. I think that New Orleans should re-sign Landry. I think Hilton should stay with Dallas. Darius Slayton is a big name. And so there's a third big name guy, for the Giants with DJ and Barkley and now the receiver. That's kind of like their top 3 players on offense.
Yeah, I just wanted to say this about Landry with the Saints real quick because we skipped past them. That, to me, with him, he's another prove-it player. I don't think he's really done nothing. I mean, Miami showed really purpose. And Cleveland, he showed some signs, but they didn't really use him like I thought they would. And now with the Saints, it's been quiet too. So I think he's going to be another prove-it year. I think the Giants might go. Giants could be after him if they lose Slayton, as long as it's a good deal. And I think he could work out in New York's offense, but depends on who's going to be quarterback out there because Daniel Jones is asking for a lot of money.
He ain't going to get it.
He ain't going to get it.
He ain't going to get it. I'll tell you, because just, looking at some of the other, I'll call them lower ranking quarterbacks that are going to be available out there. Okay. Case Keenum is available. They could bring him in. He knows Brian Daboll's system. Okay. You've got, you could probably sign Jimmy G to play for the Giants. at a lower rate than what Daniel Jones is asking for. Does he want to come, to that side of the country, or, is the Raiders going to sweet talk him into staying on the West Coast? But I mean, you look at there are other players that are out there that I think could do an adequate job. I do not think that Daniel Jones is elite. I think in the past he's turned the ball over too much. Now this year they corrected some of that, but once again, that's system and coaching.
Yeah.
But you're looking at him, Barkley, Slayton. They can only franchise one of them. The other two they're going to end up risking losing unless they get them signed by March 7th.
Well, I think
by March 15th.
I think if you're smart, you franchise tag Barkley. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I mean, who would you rather lose, Barkley or Jones?
Well, now that you think about it, of the three, I'd rather not lose Barkley. I think you can replace wide receivers. I think there's plenty of receivers on the market this year, and I think that when it comes to quarterbacks, I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks on the market.
Especially when you get a guy like
we've got just on this list alone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. There are 9 starting quarterbacks, and they're probably going to draft 3 or 4 more in the first round this year. So, there's going to be quarterbacks available. They may be, it may cost them some money, but I don't think it's going to cost them near what Daniel Jones is going to be asking for.
That is 100% sure.
All right, so I've got a list of free agents here on my deal, and I thought that I would, just talk about them, go down the line here. You're the Detroit Lions. I'm the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll go back to putting up my graphic here, and we'll go through the free agents that are available for this year. Do we want to keep them? Do we want to franchise them? What are we going to do with them? And so we're going to start with the Detroit Lions and your free agent crop this year.
So the first one on that list would be DJ Shark, which we just briefly did on it.
We talked about him.
To add to that, I've also seen reports and interviews, just like Jamal, out of Shark's own mouth, that he wants to be back and he's willing to take a team-friendly deal. With that being said, I think it's the same deal. As long as they're willing to back their mouth up, take that team-friendly deal, you sign him, you sign him. No questions asked. And maybe I would be okay letting maybe Josh Reynolds walk because he's on this list as well. I'm pretty sure. I think he is.
We'll go through them all. Just looking at the next guy on the list here. They cut Michael Brockers.
Yep.
Do you think there's any chance they bring him back at a lower figure, or is that a done deal?
I think that's a done deal because right now the Lions are sitting pretty. Our oldest player on our roster is 29.
Okay. So you think they cut him for age and cost, or?
I think age, cost, and we did what we wanted him to do. We brought him in here to work with these younger kids for the last 2 years, show them leadership, get him to where he could help them out to the point. I think he's done the best he can do, because he wouldn't be an every down player starter if he did come back for us. So I think it's best time to save the money, let him walk. Maybe there's another team that, might actually be willing to pay him the money that he wants to play and just move on.
Okay. The next guy on the list here for the Detroit Lions free agents is Mike Hughes. No, I'm sorry, Jamal Williams. Now, we talked about him already. is he going to be franchised, or just, do you think he'll just take the hometown discount and remain with Detroit?
I think he will take the home team discount, and he will stay with the Detroit Lions on that multi-year deal.
Now I see Mike Hughes on here. I'm pretty sure that he played for Kansas City last year, and before that he was with Minnesota. And so he was just like a one-year deal here in Detroit. How did he play for you? And what do you think about him re-signing with the team?
I think he played pretty good. I think we'll bring him back as long as on the same similar deal. I think maybe you get a 2-year deal, or maybe it might be a number 1 deal, or we might just completely move on from him. That one's a border. He did play pretty decent when we asked of him. I would be okay if he comes back for the right amount of money. So,
Alex Anzalone, your linebacker, former New Orleans Saint. I think he's been with Detroit a few years now. How do you feel about him?
I want him back. His leadership and the play he played this year, it was like the last 2 years now, the first last year, and how he played from start to the beginning of this year, that dude's electricity level was pretty good. I would be okay with it, even though I know we're going to draft a linebacker or sign a free agent linebacker to better our linebacker core. But especially if we're going to draft a linebacker, I think you sign Alex Anzalone for 1 more year. You let the rookie sit behind him, rotate with him, learn from him. That dude has been a beast working with all of our linebacker core. He got some. I watched a clip this past season, him working with Barnes, our middle linebacker, with play calling. He's also helped Rodrigo. So I think he's a big piece of the defense right now. And I feel like he's another one that's addressed that he wants to stay with Detroit. He don't want to play nowhere else. I believe he can even take. I believe he's a man of his word, and he'll take a hometown discount. Even though he's done it twice now already. He's played
as we're going through any of these defensive players. If you think any of them are a liability and caused you guys to, have such I would say a middling defense this last year, be sure to point them out, because I don't know your team like you do.
Oh, I definitely will be doing that, and there's some on this list that will be getting those marks.
Well, the next guy's an offensive lineman, and Evan Brown. Tell us all about him.
Evan Brown, I think he's a big piece to the offensive line. He filled in a lot this year. He played tough. I think he's a guy that you need to re-sign. No questions asked.
Chris Board.
He was just a deaf player.
Okay.
I would be okay to bring him back on a cheap deal. I'm okay if we don't.
Okay. Josh Woods.
Josh Woods was another deaf player. Same scenario. I'm okay if he comes back on a cheap deal. I won't be mad about that. And then Jared Davis will be right under Josh Woods.
Okay.
Same thing, another linebacker. I'll be okay with it. But I'm okay if we don't, because he only came off the practice squad towards the end of the season because of injury problems. So if you're going to re-sign him to cheap and he's okay with being on the practice squad, again, I'm cool with that. But if he couldn't make the team last year, I'm not trying to sign him to a deal where we gotta invest quality play in him, because that just shows me he didn't work out the first time he was here. He didn't work out when he left here either. Yeah. He went to the Jets and they cut him as well. So that just shows cheap deal. I'm okay with this.
Deshaun Elliott.
Deshaun Elliott locked that man up for a couple of years. He's earned it. He's played his ass off here. Another guy. That's a guy I don't want to see leave. I think he's a quality guy in the secondary, and I think he can help our defense take the new steps.
Nate Sudfeld, backup quarterback.
Depending on what we do in the draft. Or depending on who's a free agent that wants to come on a team-friendly deal. So
Now you're not suggesting that they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round. They're happy with Jared Goff, aren't they?
They're happy with Jared Goff. I don't see him taking a quarterback first round. I mean, if we don't trade for Ramsey and have 2 first round picks, I'm not gonna be dumb and roll it out on the table. They might be looking towards the future to sit behind Goff for a couple of years. That is a very high possibility, but I would say we would have to have 2 first round picks for that to be even a possibility. So just depending on what happens before the draft and free agency starts.
Justin Jackson, running back. Now, isn't this your 3rd string runner, or was he the 4th stringer?
Well, I would say it's a split because we got Reynolds, and Reynolds and Jackson were supposed to split that role, but Reynolds got hurt at the beginning of the season, so it turned out to Justin Jackson. So
I remember Reynolds from Hard Knocks. I thought he was a good player.
Me too. I kind of want to keep him because I feel like you need that diamond in the rough. It's nice quality in your backfield room. You know what I mean? Because that guy, if he gets more playing time, he might not be the best guy, but he's going to leave everything on the field for you. And that's what I like about Reynolds. Reynolds knows how high this hill he's climbed to get him this far because he's undrafted free agent, undrafted rookie. He's worked his ass off to be in the league for 2 years. So obviously I don't see money being an issue with him because he knows his pay scale pretty good. So I think it just comes down to him and Justin. What are they asking for? Are they willing to split that role again? If they're willing to split those, bring them both back. If not, one got to go. So then it breaks down to who has more tape and who's better. And if it comes down to that, I think Justin Jefferson might get it just over Reynolds, just for the fact, unfortunately, Reynolds got hurt, and Justin Jefferson has a lot more on tape in this offensive scheme. So it all comes down to the money and what they're willing to take in those 2 free agents. Figured I'd kill
Isaiah
one. Bugs, he started slow. He started slow this year, but he picked it up, and I like him. I do not
Will Harris.
Will Harris, if he signs for the right deal, he's that guy that cornerback and safety. He's borderline. He's played bad. He's made bad plays, but then again, he's also shown up and made some big plays as well. So to me, it all depends on the money he takes. For me to be comfortable with him come back, if he's asked for a crazy amount of money, let him walk.
Dan Skipper, tackle.
Dan Skipper, he's another depth player, but he's came in a few times and played tough. I like him. I think we can get him as a good deal, so I say keep him.
Austin Bryant, defensive end.
Austin Bryant is a Bob Quinn guy, draft late in the round. He was a guy that got hurt from Clemson. He hasn't had too crazy of years for us, but for the right amount of money for the depth player, he's shown that he can make plays. So he's another guy I would say if it's the right deal, I'm okay with bringing him back. Or if they don't bring him back, I'm okay with that because we can always upgrade.
John Kaminsky, defensive end.
John Kaminsky, I want that guy back. That dude played a big role this year. Will Harris, or not Will Harris, but his last name was Harris. I can't think of his first name. Charles Harris, I believe, defensive end. He was supposed to be the big guy that helped Aiden, and he didn't have much of a year. So John Comiskey stepped in there, and he was, once he came healthy and started playing, that's when Aiden was able to start having big games because he took the other edge pressure off. He's also another guy said he would take a team deal to come back. He's also a guy the year before that asked the Lions to trade him or release him, and they didn't. So for him to have a year where he didn't want to be with the team and then came back and played the way he did for this team, and now he's on every social platform, and media outlet, and every interview begging to stay in Detroit. I say you sign him. He'd be a good person with the rookie on the other side, just as he helped Aiden. He can help the other rookie. Sign him to a 1-year deal, team-friendly deal, and let's roll.
I can't pronounce this guy's last name, but his name is Amani Aruwari.
Let that kid walk. And if you choose not to let that kid walk, you better
I think you're racist because you can't pronounce his last name. That's why you want him to walk.
No, I was actually a big fan of him last year, or not last year, the year before.
Right.
This year, he got benched in the Minnesota game. Yeah. He had 6 penalties for pass interference in that game. He just had a bad year. Yeah. I'm not sure what went on there. I'm not sure if he just had a setback, but I'm okay with completely washing my hands with that contract. And if you do keep him back for a depth position, it better be dirty, dirty, dirty cheap.
Benito Jones, defensive tackle.
Who?
Benito Jones.
Benito Jones. I don't really know much about him because I don't think he's really seen the field that much.
Maybe he's a practice squad player.
Yeah, I mean,
what about Tommy Kramer?
Same thing. He's a practice squad player, but I'm okay with keeping him. I mean,
Brock Wright, tight end.
Brock White, I like the tight end. I like rotating the tight end how we did to finish the year. I say sign him to a couple-year deal. He's still a rookie. He's still pretty much a rookie. He only played 1 year in the league, so I think you can get him pretty cheap. I say keep him.
Scott Daly.
Scott Daly.
That's your long snapper.
Yep. I'm okay with keeping him as well. No problems out of him this year.
Anthony Pittman, linebacker.
He is a special teams player. I actually like him on special teams. He's a tough player and plays hard.
And finally, for Detroit, we've got Bobby Price, safety.
I'm okay with keeping him as well, too.
Well, that covers Detroit and their free agents. Did you get the list for Kansas City?
Yes, I did.
All right. Well, the top of the list for us is Orlando Brown. And as a Kansas City Chief fan, I can tell you that I know we're going to franchise tag him because he thinks he's worth gold. Now, he's become boys with Patrick Mahomes, and I think that is going to be something that could be a positive for the team. You know, maybe he'll talk him into something that's more of a long-term deal with less money, you know, more guaranteed up front, you know, so that they can keep him around. I wouldn't mind keeping him around because I thought that the longer the season went, the better he got. Okay. But I've seen him been burned quite a few times throughout the year. And so, you know, I don't think that he's worth the top tier left tackle money in the NFL. If he's going to have that, then we would just let him ride it out this year again on the franchise tag like we did this season. And if he doesn't want to play under the franchise tag this year, then we're going to have to trade him. And, because I think that there are other players out there, that we can get. Last year, I said we could have had Dwayne Brown from Seattle. He signed a 2-year, $16 million contract with the Jets. We could have had him. I know he ended up getting hurt, and hindsight's 2020, but he may not have been injured if he'd have played for Kansas City. And we could have did something different other than Orlando Brown. Do we win the Super Bowl? I don't know, but that's what I would do with Orlando Brown is I would try to sign him up, have him play on the franchise tag if he wants too much money, and then, or trade him away. Juju Smith-Schuster, I really think they need to re-sign. I think his value has shown throughout the year. He was basically the primary receiver behind Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
He didn't have the speed that Tyreek Hill had, but he made a lot of in-between catches. He was basically like having a second Travis Kelce, and when Kelce wasn't open, Juju was. And so I think that, I think they're going to sign him to hopefully a team favorable deal for multiple years, at least a minimum of 3 years, in my opinion, but if they can only get him for one, I understand, he's trying to get another ring and then maybe wants to skip out and get a big payday. But, definitely would try to re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster. Carlos Dunlap played, I thought, really well for us in the defensive line rotation. They had George Karlaftis, the rookie, came in this year, Frank Clark on the other side. And so they would move the defensive ends in and out. And Dunlap, made some plays this year. I know he's getting up there in age, but if they can re-sign him to a decent deal, I think I would definitely have him come back. Derek Nottie, this is one of those ones where after you win the Super Bowl, everybody wants to get paid. I think we're going to lose Derek Nottie, okay, at defensive tackle. I don't think that they're going to be able to re-sign him because he's just going to want too much money under, the system that we're trying to build here. Now I understand that they could restructure contracts, make the salary cap more affordable so they can sign other players. But I think that he's one of those guys that's going to want to get a little bit more money and they may not be able to afford it. But if they can sign him, I definitely want to have him back. Andrew Wiley played right tackle a lot this year when Lucas Niang got hurt. He was the starter in the Super Bowl, and of course, no sacks, put it on a t-shirt. They all played well. I seem to think a little bit of that was because of the field conditions. But they played great. We won. What more can you ask for? I think that this is his opportunity to get a big payday. And if he can get one, it's probably not going to be with Kansas City. I would try to re-sign him, not necessarily as a starter, because I still think that's Niang's job, that he basically had to take over because of injury during the year and played very well. He's been with the team, for quite some time. And I think that, they'd probably like to keep him, but I'm not sure they'll be able to re-sign him. Chad Henne's retiring. So, they're going to be looking for a new backup quarterback. The first guy I thought of was Nick Foles, because Nick Foles is in Indianapolis. They're starting a new regime there. He has gone from Philadelphia to Jacksonville, to Indianapolis. He's been knocked around to a bunch of different places ever since he won the Super Bowl MVP for Philadelphia. And so now he is basically not a starter in the league. He is a backup. He knows the Andy Reid system. And I think that if they could get him on the cheap to come in and replace Chad Henne, I think that would probably be a good deal for Kansas City. I don't expect the Chiefs to re-sign Ronald Jones II. I think they've got their, at least for this season, their three-headed running game in Pacheco. They re-signed Jerick McKinnon, who's on the list here of, free agents. And then they'll have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, at least for this season, unless he requests to be traded, in which case they may, grant that request. Jones did pretty much nothing all year. He wanted to be traded away, but they kept him for just in case, situations. They give him a few carries near the end of the year, but I don't think he's going to return to the Chiefs. And so then we get to the fullback, Michael Burton. He's signed a one-year deal each of the last 2 years. I think he'll do it again. We're one of very few teams that carries a fullback on their team. And, he scored a couple touchdowns, a couple of surprise plays here and there, but he's a good fullback for us. Blake Bell, the tight end, he actually played high school just down the road here, near Wichita. And so he's a local kid. I'm sure he would like to stay with the Chiefs if he can, and I'm sure they'd like to re-sign him. He does the quarterback sneaks nowadays for the Chiefs because, they don't let Patrick Mahomes do quarterback sneak no more. They value his knee.
Yeah, I seen that in the broadcast.
Did you watch the New Heights podcast with Kelsey and the Kelsey brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like watching that too. That's good stuff. I missed them this week. Hopefully they'll have a new one coming out this week. We're going to take a little time off and celebrate and take a break from the season. But I like watching the New Heights podcast. New news.
Who knows?
We talked about Jerick McKinnon. I think that he is the second best running back on the team behind Pacheco. He's the receiving running back. And so I want him to re-sign him. I think that Mecole Hardman is gone. I think the reason they brought Kadarius Toney over from the Giants is because they knew that Hardman's going to be looking for a big deal, and they're not going to be able to afford to pay both him and Juju, and Juju was more reliable down the stretch. Hardman had to have hip surgery, which, he'll probably feel a lot better now. If they get him on a cheap deal, he may want to sign a one-year contract, to just play one more year for the Chiefs so that he can show what he's got, because he's great on those, jet sweeps, end arounds, returning kicks. But if they're probably not going to be able to do that, I think he's not going to be with the team this year. Deion Bush at safety. I think he's, pretty much a depth player. They'll probably re-sign him if they can. I got no problem with them, whether they sign him or not. But the guy that they really got to sign in the secondary is Juan Thornhill, and I'm worried about him. I think the problem is going to be they can't franchise tag him and Orlando Brown at the same time. And because they franchise Orlando Brown, there's probably a pretty good chance they're going to lose Thornhill in free agency. Just like they did last year, with Javarius Ward ended up going to San Francisco. They groom these secondary guys, and then they can't afford to pay them because they have so many other players that are, want their mouth fed. And I think he's going to be the next in a long line that's going to continue to happen over the years, as long as you've got Patrick Mahomes and weapons that you got to pay.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
Justin Watson came over and played, this year. He played for Tampa Bay last year, and he came over and he was kind of like the deep threat. They didn't throw it deep often. Between him and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, those are the two deep threats this year, and it was kind of a surprise. He shocked people when he made it down the field and made big plays on them. I think they can re-sign him to a team-friendly deal with no problem. But his spot may get taken because Justin Ross, the former Clemson product, is He was out this whole year due to injury. When he comes back, I'm sure he's going to be one of the guys that's going to make the team. And if Tony took Mecole Hardman's spot, Ross may be taking Watson's spot. So we'll just have to see on that. Kalen Saunders is another defensive lineman that I think is going to want to get paid. Kansas City is going to have to restructure quite a few contracts. Frank Clark, for instance. I think Mahomes is always willing to kick the can down the road and restructure his deal a little bit. He did last year. I don't know who else is available with a big contract that'll want to restructure to help the team. But remember, they're getting $16 million added to the salary cap. And so that'll be a little bit of a help for them. And, with Kalen Saunders, I just concerned about whether or not they'll be able to retain him. He may want too much money. Tommy Townsend, the punter, I expect him to get re-signed. Tershawn Wharton is another player. Defensive line, that's what we're going to have to concentrate this year on in the draft. A lot of these defensive ends and players, we had a really good pass rush in Kansas City this year, and it's going to cost us here in free agency. Jody Fortson at tight end is he is a rehabilitated wide receiver. They moved him to tight end, and when he stays healthy, he can be a weapon in the red zone for them. I don't think he played very much near the end of the year. This may be his last hurrah with Kansas City. Just depends on what kind of money he's looking for. So, I'd like to see him come back. You got Shane Buechele, the quarterback, who is basically the practice squad third stringer. Now, maybe he's been around long enough, they've groomed him, that they don't need to bring in a backup veteran quarterback, and he'll be the guy. They had to put him on the roster and off of the practice squad a couple years ago because Arizona tried to poach him. And so, other teams are looking at him to be on their team. This may be his opportunity to re-sign and back up, Mahomes on a full-time basis now that Henne is retiring. Prince Tega Wanaho. I got to be honest, I don't know who this guy is. He must be a practice squad player or a special teams player. He's down near the bottom of the depth chart. And so I have no feeling whether or not come and go. Doesn't matter at this point to me. The final guy on the list is Nick Allegretti, and I think he's a really good backup guard. He's come in a few spots over the last couple of years to help take over for some starters that have been injured. He is a better road grading, running style offensive lineman than he is a pass protector, but he does do a good job filling in spot duty from time to time. And so there you go. We talked about Detroit and what they've got in their free agents that are their own free agents, and then Kansas City and what they got in their own free agents. I haven't heard anything yet on the Kansas City side about players that we are going to be possibly looking at to add to the team from other teams. And the only person that I know about for Detroit that may get added is, of course, the trade we talked about earlier in the broadcast with Jalen Ramsey. Do you know anybody else that has, been mentioned as a possible free agent pickup or trade partner?
I heard the Steelers something about Jalen Ramsey, but other than that, it's just been Detroit from what I've seen. So Steelers and Detroit, but more of the talk coming out of Detroit as right now. Not saying it's going to happen, so don't shoot the messenger, guys.
Right.
I'm just reporting what I've physically seen with my own eyes.
I don't think that he is a candidate to go to Pittsburgh unless they do a lot of restructuring.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is not the kind of team to pay $20 million a season, to a whole lot of players. That's why I said I didn't think Bobby Wagner would be going, to Pittsburgh unless he's going to take a drastic, pay cut compared to this last year. Ramsey, I think, is getting somewhere in the area of $14 to $16 million a season, and it's just going to keep going up unless he restructures his contract. And I'm not sure Pittsburgh, they don't have the room under the cap for that right now without making some moves. Whereas Detroit's got a pick they can send. Detroit's got cap room. If they're looking to win now in what I would say is a weakened NFC conference, this might be a real good move for them.
I think it's a good move, and I'm sure we'll find out here soon because I feel like this week, so I feel like next Sunday we're going to have a lot more to talk about. I feel like this week stuff's going to start picking up and moves are going to start being made. Because March starts. They've got
the franchise tags have to be all in place by March 7th. Okay. And then the league year starts on March the 15th. And so everybody's got to have, for the most part, all of the contracts need to get restructured, any trades that they want to get in place, any cuts that they need to make for salary cap reasons. They got to get their salary caps in order.
Yep.
And so, like you said, there's going to be a lot to talk about on the next broadcast.
And the next broadcast for me and you, for sure, would be
Sunday night.
Sunday night, the 5th of February, 2 days before that deadline. So I'm sure by then we should know a lot more about what a lot of teams are doing.
Well, Chris, once again, I've had a fantastic time being here with you, buddy.
Same here, Dave. It's always glad to have you on the show. I cannot wait to see you next Sunday. The show. Hopefully, we do not have no more difficulties again. That's my fault. My thing was, I think Facebook, if you share too many groups too fast, in which I did I went through and reshared it, and I shared it in a bunch of groups. And next thing you know, they're like, it's spam, which obviously wasn't spam. I proved who it was.
Right.
Thing to have, but I thought when they kicked me out, I didn't know it was going to kill our whole live. So I thought the live would continue. It's just I couldn't see it. But unfortunately, the computer told me our live got kicked off Facebook. So we did part 2. I still think we did a great show, even though with it all, I cannot wait the next week. So
I just want to say, anybody that's watching near the end here, if you're still sticking around to the very end, comment on the broadcast. If there are things that you want us to talk about, we'll bring it up. We want to talk about things, we're talking right now pretty much about the things that we have the most knowledge about, our own teams, and just the news in general that we get from ESPN or Football Chase, Pro Football Focus, Pro Football Live, all of the radio shows, that's where we get our knowledge from for the most part. And so, if you want to know about something and you want to hear us talk about it, leave some comments. We'll be glad to talk about it. I guarantee it.
Exactly. And if you guys haven't already, follow 4th Down Sports, 4th and Goal Sports. It'll have every broadcast. It goes right there first. If you're not an NFL Renegades, you want to join, talk football with a bunch of people. Me and Dave are both in there. We do pick'ems all through the year. Go join the group. You can follow us on YouTube and Twitch. On YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook, we're on all 3. If you go on 4th and Goal Sports, if you go look under the website, it has our YouTube, also has our Twitch username as well. You can follow there. I post throughout the week. Dave's on every Sunday. Tuesday shows, I bring a guest in. I interview the guest and talk about their team. We got a lot of exciting stuff coming all off season. And then when the season starts, it's really going to get picked up. Our broadcast will really pick up then. So we got a lot of good things coming your way.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one, guys. God bless. All right, Dave. Till next time, buddy.
We'll see you.
Later, buddy.